Good to see you guys here today. Hope you had a good week this week. And we are in this teaching series called Fresh Start. Looking at how we could get kind of a new beginning with money and finance. We do this every year at Central. I think it's really important because we stress about this area and we fight about this area and we obsess about this area of our lives. So we're going to get some good biblical perspective. But before we jump into that, just a few words about the fires in LA. I know we've already prayed and talked about that, but I know that many of you have family and loved ones. We're so close to the Los Angeles area, and we all know people kind of in that area. Some are evacuated. Some have already lost their homes. A good friend of mine for 23 years completely lost his home. It's just down to ashes. He had posted a picture a couple days ago, and it was from a couple weeks ago, where his daughter was sitting in their home where they had raised their kids in Altadena, sitting at the fireplace, and then posted a picture yesterday of just the fireplace. It's the only thing still standing in their entire house. Everything else is completely just ash. Just heart-wrenching and heartbreaking for these families. And my friend, this is what he responded to me. He said, I obviously reached out and texted him, and we're helping him financially and in other ways. The whole community of their friends and network is surrounding them. But I said to him, like, love you, I'm praying for you. And his response to me was this. He says, we are gutted, but God is with us. We are gutted, but God is with us. And God, I don't know how you face these kinds of things in life without faith, without the Lord. We all can face hard things in life, terrible things. Jesus says, in this world you will have trouble. He said that we could expect in the future wars and rumors of wars. He said earthquakes, natural disasters. He said this is the earth in labor pains. That's the language he used. The earth in labor pains before the new heaven and the new earth are born and ushered in. So we live in a broken, fallen world. The Bible says the sun rises on the righteous and the unrighteous, right? Natural disasters can happen to the righteous and to the unrighteous. And we've just got to remember, none of us are immune to that. We live in a broken, fallen world. But what we need in those moments, to be honest, to admit we're gutted, but also to admit that our God will be with us and will walk with us, and the faith community will surround us. And my friend, at one point, he posted, I have like 358 unanswered text messages. To all my friends, I love you. I'll get back to you when I can. But that's what you call community and love and people rallying around. And I know that's happened for them. And honestly, like when you look at situations like this, our thoughts, our prayers, our money, our effort, this is going to take years, maybe even north of 10 years to really start to rebuild some of the damage that's been done. It's a long time. But there's some great ministries on the ground doing some amazing work. So one comment about Los Angeles. A few people online have suggested things, followers of Jesus, who've suggested that maybe these fires are God's judgment on Hollywood. And I just want to say a quick word about, like, first of all, we don't really know what the mind of God as it relates to his judgment or lack of judgment. But secondly, I don't know about you, but I've been a pastor 30 years. That's above my pay grade. Like, I don't know. I don't know what God may or may not be doing, but what I do believe is there are amazing people in the Los Angeles area. Los Angeles is not whatever you see in the media or whatever you see in Hollywood. Just like Las Vegas is not whatever you see in the media or whatever you see in Hollywood. If there was a natural disaster in Las Vegas, can you imagine what those same people would say about us? Like, oh yeah, they deserve it out there. Sodom and Gomorrah. Wipe them off the planet, right? Come on, that's what they say. But we all know on the ground, there's amazing churches, amazing people of faith, amazing individuals all around us. Like, you can't always believe the headlines. And let me just say, I believe the same is true for Los Angeles. Amazing people, amazing churches. God's doing amazing work. And I'm not suggesting any of you would even think this, but I'm just throwing it out there. Let's just be careful with judgment about things that we don't even understand, because maybe it wasn't God's judgment at all. Maybe it was a fire that got caught up in hurricane level winds and blew all over everywhere. And we don't know, but here's what we do know. Jesus says, our calling, my calling, love God with all my heart, mind, strength, and soul. Love my neighbor as myself, right? That's what we want to do in this situation. All right. But it's relevant to the theme that we're talking about today, because the more we as a church manage our resources with wisdom, then the more we're prepared to help our church family members or our community or our friends and neighbors when they hit a crisis or a situation in their lives. The more we manage our own personal finances with wisdom, the more we're able to help friends, family, our own family get through unexpected times. Now, don't get me wrong, like nobody, you can't prepare to be wiped out by a fire. That's a whole other level. But we can organize our lives so that we could step in, like for a friend, and help them and be able to do some things for them in those moments. You and I, we can't control what happens with the global economy. Everybody's worried about what's going to happen in the global economy? What's in the global economy? Look, I don't know, but you don't have any influence over that. But you have a lot of influence over what happens in your own personal economy. In fact, you pretty much can control your own personal economy. So stop worrying about the global economy, and let's get intentional about helping influence our own personal economy, because that's the one that's going to really matter to our lives anyway. I read a study this last year that I was found really surprising, kind of rocked my world. It was the largest study ever done in America on millionaires. It was done by the Dave Ramsey organization. They interviewed and studied 10,000 millionaires in America. How do they live? What do they think? What do they purchase? Like, how did they amass that kind of wealth? They found some interesting things about them. First of all, 93% of the millionaires came from nothing. With little to no inheritance. They didn't inherit businesses, money. 93% generated that wealth in their own lifetime. You say, well, they're probably like super high salaried people. Well, these are the top 5 jobs of everyday millionaires in their research. Number 1 was engineer. Man, those engineers. Always, right? Number 1 was engineer. Number 2 was accountant, the numbers people, right? The accountants. Number 3, teacher. What? I mean, if anybody needs a raise, if you ask me in the world, if anybody needs a raise, what we all say, like, teachers need a raise. It's crazy. They got to put up with your kids, my kids. I mean, they need something for sure. But teacher was number 3. Number 4 profession was management, 90% of which was low to mid-level management, not C-suite. And number 5 was attorneys. Yes, of course. But more everyday millionaires in their study were teachers than were attorneys. Here's what I think it means. It doesn't matter how much you earn if you spend it all. You're still broke. Come on, somebody, right? You earn $1 million, you spend $1 million, guess what? You're as broke as the next guy on the street. You earn $50,000, you save $5,000, you do that consistently and invest it and put that money to work for you over time, and all of a sudden, you're doing a lot better off, right? So I say all this to encourage you, because what we're going to talk about could be challenging, could be difficult, and I believe the grace of God covers over all of it. But I want you to imagine this year as a year where maybe you get some more financial cushion in your life. Maybe it's a year where you get a little more financial peace. Maybe it's the year where you fight a little less about money at home. Let's check it out. Proverbs chapter 13, beginning in verse 11. Let me read this. We'll get to the red word. Say it real loud here with me. Proverbs 13:11. It says, wealth from get-rich-quick schemes quickly disappears, but wealth from hard work, what? Grows over time. Grows over time. So the biblical wisdom, and Proverbs, again, is not biblical promises, it's biblical wisdom, right? The biblical wisdom is, hey, if you want to grow wealth, that's going to happen more often than not over time, more often than not through hard work, through dedication, little by little. And that's important because a lot of people just hold on to winning the lottery, right? Or they hold on to the long-lost relative who dies, who you don't even know you're related to, but all of a sudden it's like, boom, I'm a jillionaire. Awesome, I hope it happens for you. But if you get wealth quickly, there is a likelihood, Proverbs says, it will disappear quickly. And I think that's because if you never learn to manage it when it's small, if you get a whole lot at once, it's probably gonna go right out the back door. But if it grows slowly over time, you get better, you manage it, you a little more, you get better, you manage it, and you can find yourself in a much more secure financial situation. So if we're gonna do that, first challenge today is this: we gotta spend wisely, Now, when I was growing up, we had a thing called Saturday morning cartoons. Anybody remember Saturday morning cartoons? Some of you, back in the day, like Saturday morning, you watched cartoons. And so I was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. It was Scooby-Doo. Come on. But then after cartoons, it was wrestling, right? And man, it was like Hulk Hogan. I know he's like a senior citizen now. Hulk Hogan. And then it was Ric Flair, Nature Boy. Come on. My mom really wasn't down with me watching wrestling. That's why I liked it so much. And I would just turn that volume down and sort of shield her from the TV if she walked by and be like, I'm just watching cartoons, you know? Anyway. But another cartoon that came on was Richie Rich. Now, Richie Rich was this little billionaire kid that had all the money in the world and spent money like crazy and had a helicopter and all the things. I'll just watch that and be like, wow, what would that be like, Richie Rich? Maybe if you were a kid of the 90s, for you it was like Scrooge McDuck, like diving into his vault of money. Forbes did a study on these fictional cartoon characters on which one was the wealthiest based on the programming in their show. And this is what they found out. Number 3, they said Scrooge McDuck. He's worth $8.2 billion. Number 2 was Daddy Warbucks, worth $10 billion. But number 1 was my man, Richie Rich, $27 billion. Man, I watch those guys on TV. I watch Richie Rich, and I'm like, if you had all that money, you'd just do whatever you want. You'd spend it however you want. And maybe that's true for billionaires, but for everyday people who've amassed significant savings over the course of their lives, the research on the ground says that most people don't act like Richie Rich. Everyday millionaires, you know what they found in their study? They drive everyday cars. Very few of them drive like super expensive exotic cars. They wear everyday clothes. Some of them still shop with coupons. What? That's why they're millionaires, right? They lived more modest lifestyles. In fact, the research suggests, after looking at 10,000 millionaires, that most of them from the outside, you would never know they're a millionaire. But they've built significant wealth over time through simple principles. And one of them is they spend wisely, right? They spend wisely and they save. Proverbs 21:10, look at what it says. Help me out on the red word here. It says, the wise man, what? Saves for the future, but the foolish man spends whatever he gets. Oh man, that hurts. Because I'm pretty good at spending. Let me just be real, okay? I can spend it, you know, like when money, like I don't feel like I'm like greedy or anything. I'm just good at spending it. Anybody feel me here? Like when money rolls in, it rolls out. You know, I can spend it with the best of them. And I've had to face over the years this tendency in my life that I got to be disciplined. I got to take a breath. I got to push back on my own desires. I got to save for the future and for our family. I can't just spend everything that comes in. And we all relate to money a little different. In a couple weeks, Lori and I will talk about how we relate to money. But my wife, Lori, she buys little things, little bitty things along the way. She loves to thrift. She goes to all the thrift stores and vintage whatever and flea markets and just junk and everywhere. And Lori's just like in high heaven. Who are my people like this? Just all about, you love, look, she will nickel and dime us into the poorhouse, right? Little things, but a lot of them, But it was only so, and then her biggest thing is then after she gets it, she looks it up on Etsy to see how much she saved. I'm like, well, if you didn't buy it all together, then we would really save. Instead, look how much we saved. Anyway, so this is what she does. I don't do that with small things, but I will wait, bide my time and buy one thing, and then we're broke. So she does the little things, I wait, do the big things, and anyway, it's attention. How do we relate to money? That's a big part of it when it comes to spending wisely. I'm just gonna bring a few words up on the screen, and I think, if your basic needs are met, meaning you have shelter and food and clothing and basic needs are met, then we often relate to money in one of these 3 ways, or maybe several of them. One of them is we find security in money, a sense of security. For some of you that are savers, this is kind of where you're at. You find security in having wealth. My parents were older, and they were Depression era kids. And so money in our house was all about security and safety. And, your family of origin deeply affects like how you view money and things, right? So this is, kind of how I view money. If you don't have money, you're not safe. If you have money, you're safe, right? There was a security thing to it. Other people, they relate to money more about freedom. It's more about like their choices, things they love to do, the next adventure. So if you're more this person, then if you don't have money, it's not that you feel unsafe, it's that you feel trapped, right? You can't do the thing that you really want to do. You don't feel like you're free. Other people relate to money more around like success. And success is more about like, hey, my net worth is like connected to my self-worth. If you don't have money, then you just feel like a failure in your life. Like it's all connected to how you see yourself, what you drive, what you wear, how other people see you. These are not necessarily right or wrong. I just think these are some of the ways we relate to money. Money's very important. Money can give you a certain sense of security. It can help you experience a certain sense of freedom. It can give you a certain sense of success. But here's the thing here's where we have to be careful is money alone can never give you all of these things because only God can ultimately give you all of these things. Right? So, and I think we, just looking around, like if we look to money as the thing that has the power to give us these things that we really kind of seek in when it comes to how we relate to money, I think we're just setting ourselves up for frustration. Money may make you feel secure, but only God is the source of security. And your money can disappear tomorrow, right? But God is the same yesterday, today, and forever. Money can give you a sense of freedom, but sometimes like a lot of people become captive to debt, pursuing that freedom to such a degree that it actually starts to limit their freedom. But God's the one who wants to set us free. Jesus came, the Bible says, and lived and died and rose again. Ultimately, it's for freedom that he came to set us free from our sin and our destructive desires and the things that pull our hearts in the wrong way. Money can give you a certain sense of success, but ultimately God is the one that gives you a sense of self-worth and a sense of value from the inside out. They say money is a terrible master, but it's a great servant. You got to keep it in the role of being a servant to God. Look, God is the one you look to for freedom. God is the one you look to for security. God is the one you look to ultimately for value in your success. And then money is the tool and the servant, the middle person that you utilize to accomplish things that are before you. The Bible says that the love of money is the root of all evil. Not that money is the root of all evil. Money's neutral. It's the inordinate love of money. You make it the number one thing in your life. Ecclesiastes says, he who loves money will never have enough. In other words, you make it number one, you're going to find your security there, your success, your freedom there. You'll never get enough. No matter how much you get, you need more. You make God enough, number one, you can find a sense of peace even with the money you have. So I think all of that can help us reframe and spend wisely. Here's another thought for you today, and that is then work a plan. Work a plan in your life. I made a lot of mistakes with money. I remember when I was right out of high school, I walked into a music store and I saw an Ibanez guitar, yellow Ibanez guitar. I was like, that's so cool. That guitar looks amazing. And the problem was I didn't have enough money for it, but it was no worries, the guy told me, because I could buy now, same as cash, and 90 days later, I could figure out the financial side of it. And I'm like, what? I love America. And so I bought the yellow Ibanez guitar. I walked out amazing. What I didn't understand back then, right out of high school, is, man, these 90 days, same as cash deals, you got to read the fine print, people, because if you don't read the fine print, like after the 90 days passed, I missed a payment. And when you miss a payment, they charged me back interest for the first 90 days, and my interest started going up like crazy, right? And you realize, like, whoa. But I wasn't too concerned about that because I had other problems. I bought a truck. And, I walked into a dealership. I needed a new car, and there was this truck, amazing truck. I'm like, I need that truck. It wasn't new. It was a couple years old, but it was newer. I'm like, I could maybe even get a date if I had that truck. Like, that truck is amazing. This truck will make me happy. And I didn't have the money for a down payment, really. I didn't really have any money. They're like, no problem. We can negotiate it. And I drove off that lot. No lie, this would have been 1989. I'm older than I look, people. 17% interest on that truck. Wisdom just flowing out of me. What did the Bible just say? The foolish man spends whatever he gets. I'm just saying I made a lot of mistakes when it comes to this area. So I was like 20 years old, 19 years old. I was already on the treadmill between my guitar and my truck. We hadn't even got to college yet. Man, they start sending me credit cards. I got credit cards offers every other month in college. Come on, somebody. And then like, you're not even talking about student loans and all the things. You don't have to do crazy things in your life to find yourself kind of as a young adult moving, adulting pretty significantly and being overwhelmed with debt. Credit card debt, other kinds of debt, all this stuff. And now you're on the treadmill just trying to put the money back. And that's where we found ourselves. We were living Proverbs 22, verse 7. Proverbs 22, 7. Let's bring it up on the screen. It says, just as the rich rule the poor, so the borrower is what? Servant to the lender. In other words, the Bible doesn't say that debt is bad, but it says I think the conclusion of biblical wisdom is you have to be careful with debt. Right? It's a tool, but it's dangerous. Like a chainsaw is a tool. Come on. You got to cut down a tree, get a chainsaw. Awesome. But you better be careful because you could also cut your leg off, right? Debt is a tool, but it's a dangerous tool. You got to be wise about how you manage debt in your life. And we got into all kinds of debt without even really trying, if you will. And eventually we're just on that treadmill. So we had to make some decisions and we had to get a plan. And I just want to share with you real practically and briefly what we did that helped us climb out of some of our consumer debt, start putting some money back in savings, and start getting some financial victory in our lives. And we just followed. I read a book that changed my life by Dave Ramsey called Total Money Makeover years ago, and I just pretty much followed his plan. But here it is. The first thing he did is we made a spending plan. We made a spending plan. Now, I like to call it a spending plan rather than a budget because who wants to make a budget? Like some of you are already going to fight after church, and I'm sorry. I love you. That was not my point. Just everybody just love each other and get along, okay? But I know how this goes. It's nobody's fault, okay? Let's just move positive. Let's go forward. Anyway, more on that later. We'll pray for you. I don't want to make a budget. A budget's no fun, but a spending plan. I like that language because a spending plan says, I'm going to spend it. Every bit of it. I'm going to spend all of it. I'm just going to ahead of time direct where it's going to get spent, right? I'm going to have a plan for how we spend it. And so how do you get a spending plan? Well, first you got to kind of figure out where you are. And back in the day for us, we had to actually save receipts, this thing called receipts. And then we bring them home. We pull them all out, lay them on the table and be like, how much, what went for this and what went for that. Today you could just go download an app, go get an app. Dave Ramsey has an app. You get an app, you could be like, how much I spent on coffee last month? Oh my word, right? How much did I spend on just whatever? And it will tell you kind of where your money's going. And that's super helpful because it will help you realize man, we're actually able to live where we're living, drive what we're driving, do what we're doing, and have a comfortable life if we manage this at a different level. Or maybe we got to seriously look at where we're living or what we're driving or some of the things. Some people don't want to make hard changes in their life, and I'm sympathetic, but I would just say, what's on the other side of some of these hard changes? More peace. Less stress, living within your means. It's a huge thing if you can do it. So anyway, you got to start with knowing where your money's going. So we got to figure out where our money was going, and then we got to plan what we were going to, spend money on, what we were going to enjoy, where we could cut back, things that we could do. Then our first thing was we tried to save $1,000. We tried to save $1,000 for an emergency fund. So we got on a spending plan. We started trying to pay down the minimums on all of our debt, and then put money back to get $1,000 in the bank. Now, I know somebody right now is like, hey, man, $1,000, that doesn't do anything. That's not much. What do you think about? I'm like, yeah, but you save $1,000 according to research, you got more than 60% of other Americans. So it may not be much, but a lot of people sitting around you don't have it based on the research, right? So I'm just saying, like, at least start somewhere, get $1,000, because stuff will happen. Like yesterday, my daughter came in, she goes, Dad, my car won't start. I'm like, oh, again? So my car won't. I'm like, buy a Honda, they'll run forever. Yeah, okay. So I go out to her car. It's like a 2017, right? You know, it's still pretty new, you ask me. The older I get, I'm like, that's basically a new car. What are you talking about? This car's good. I get in the car. I'm not so spiritual that I won't say a prayer over my car. Anybody feel me on this? Like, I'm like, Lord, please let the Honda start. I don't know what I got to do right now, but just let the Honda start. I push the brake. I push the start button. Boom, it started right up. I'm like, oh, amazing. Thank you, God. And then I drove all around the block. I came back in the driveway. I stopped. I turned it off. I pushed the button again. It started. I'm like, it is fixed. It's fixed. I got out, and that's where we're at. As of right now, the car is fixed. Everything's fine. No worries. We'll keep going until it's not. But look, stuff is always happening. You got to get some kind of an emergency fund just to deal with that. So first thing we tried to do is save $1,000. Then we started like what Dave Ramsey calls the debt snowball. The debt snowball says you list out all your debts, credit card debts, consumer debts, and then you take your smallest debt first and you pay the minimums on everything, and then you pay off that smallest debt, right? Then you go to the next largest debt. You pay the minimums on everything, you pay off that debt. Then you go to the next largest debt as you can, right? You pay the minimums on everything, you pay the next largest debt. The idea is that you pay the smallest one first until you start building momentum. Then you feel like a snowball going downhill. It's like, we're winning, you know? Now, all the math people right here get really frustrated because they're like, no, you should pay the largest interest rate first. Like, that's the one you should pay first. And Dave Ramsey always says, like, hey, math did not get you into this situation. So stop trying to use all your math skills to get out of it. You know, like, I think what he's getting at, what worked for us was you get that first one knocked off, it's just one less complication in your life. Then you get the next one knocked off, it's one less. It took us over a year. We were able to pay off the majority of our credit card debt. And then we were able to start saving money and putting it back to build a 3-month emergency fund. And we did that. We built that fund. Then we were able to start paying down on our cars and dealing with other debt in our life. And it took a few years, but I went from working 3 jobs to working 1. We changed our lifestyle, but what we got in that was peace and more joy. That's what I hope for every one of you. And so, this was the process that we did. The fourth thing that we did is we gave back to God. Now, I want you to know, during this whole process, I was tithing, I was a pastor, I was giving to the church, I was supporting the church. But tithing isn't like a magic pill, you know? Just because I was tithing, I was living on 90+% of my income, and we were still struggling. And the reality was, God had given us everything we needed, but he expected me to use wisdom and manage it well. So Proverbs chapter 11, beginning in verse 25 says this, the generous will what? Prosper. Those who refresh others will themselves be refreshed. Now we often think it's reversed, right? The prosperous will be generous. Those who have a lot should be generous. The truth is it's the generous that eventually, in many cases, have a lot because they live a generous life, they refresh others, they give to others. And I think as we do that, God blesses and shows up in our lives. So as we were trying to deal with our financial situation and right it, we continue to give back to God faithfully, and I've never regretted that. But I also had to look at the other areas of my life and try to be wise in that moment. Look, I don't know where you're at financially. Maybe you're like, had a great year, everything's great, this is all no problem, and you're good to go. But I know the research suggests that a lot of people are struggling and a lot of people are hurting. And I want to encourage you this way. God loves you. You're his child. He didn't bring you this far to abandon you. He didn't bring you this far to drop you off. He's not throwing you to the curb. In fact, Jesus paid for your debt and mine. On the cross, he said the words, "It is finished," which is fascinating because that phrase was written on old bills that were paid, like at grocery stores. When the debt was paid off, they would write this word at the bottom. And it basically was translated, "It is finished," the same word Jesus says. So think about it. He's on the cross paying for our sins. When you messed up with money, it's finished, right? You've blown it with family. You've blown it, in your own life. The debt has been paid. You've messed up and failed. The debt has been paid. You're forgiven, free, loved, empowered. God is moving and working in your life, and he's not throwing you to the curb because you made some financial mistakes. We all have. We all have. And I'm the first one in line. I've done some dumb things financially. But thank God my value isn't based on my net worth. It's not based on how much I earn or don't earn. It's not based on how much I have or even on how much I've given. My value is based on what Jesus gave, what he gave for me and his love for me and his love for you in your life. So there's hope. There's hope. It may be stressful, it may be hard, but you're not alone. My friend right now, managing what life looks like without everything they've built his whole life in the LA area. We're gutted, but God is with us. And later he talked about how God is showing up. Here's what I've seen: no matter how hard what you go through is in life, God works in the details of our lives. And so many people who walk through so much on the other side of it are the ones that testify to the little miracles of God every day, to how God showed up there and how God worked. And I believe he can do it in your life. I've seen him do it in my life. We're not alone.